Hello.
All right, getting the live stream going. So give me a second. And now we're live. Cool. Well, thanks for joining everybody for our February call. Can't believe we're already in the second month of 2022. The month has flown by. So good to have you folks again. All right, so let me again remind you of our community code of conduct. We like to remind people that we have a code of conduct before all of our events. So just wanted to flash that really quick. And agenda probably look familiar to a lot of you who attended other community calls before. So we have several community news items we want to share. And we have our first user story from Russia. We have a lot of community members from Russia. So I was really excited to work with a few people from KazanExpress who contributed a nice blog post that was published last week. And I mean, unfortunately, the KazanExpress team members are not able to join us. Normally, they're based in Russia. But I think to escape the winter in Moscow, I think a few of the team members decided to work out of Thailand to enjoy the warmth. So it's after midnight there, so understandably they are not able to join us. I'll do my best to sort of fill in for Oleg, Yuri, and other folks from KazanExpress team. So we'll go over that. And Ryan's on the call as well to give us product updates, and then we have a demo as well, I believe. So we'll go over that. All right, so jumping right into our agenda, community news. I mean, first of all, we have an exciting item. You probably are familiar with our Cube hero. I mean, a few of the people are on the call today. I mean, this is a way to sort of not only recognize people for community members that have made a lot of contribution to Cube, but also, I mean, these are like important resources that I found very valuable. Almost using them as our advisors or sounding board for various initiatives that we're doing, either on the technical side or on the community side of things. I think last year we were like looking at ways to improve our playground, particularly the user experience portion of it. And we tapped into heroes and other community members. So it's valuable to have these sort of ambassadors that speak, that can sort of represent the community. And wanted to introduce our latest member, Bruce. I'll let Bruce introduce yourself in a few minutes, but you've probably seen his prolific contribution in our community Slack. Not only helping people, but also providing a lot of insights and interesting conversation, participating in interesting conversations. So I'll just pause there, and Bruce, I'll let you quickly introduce yourself. And yeah, hey, welcome, Bruce.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. So I work at a company called Ternary, and we're working to build a cloud cost management platform for customers using GCP, the Google Cloud. I primarily work on the backend team here doing data processing and, of course, using Cube to serve data to our customers. I'm particularly interested in performance and making sure that our app is reliable and performant for our customers. And I love getting involved in Slack whenever I see a cool conversation come up, or somebody has a question that I might be able to help with. So happy to be a part of this community.
Cool. Thanks, Bruce. It's great to have you, not just as part of our hero, but also in our community too. I appreciate. Definitely look forward to working with you going forward. Cool. Moving right along. Just wanted to provide a quick recap on our last workshop. I guess it's almost like 3 weeks ago now. Back on the 19th. Just wanted to provide some stats and feedback. So we had like a lot of people that actually attended the event. I think we had a little over 200 people like register, and about half of them attended. So I mean, almost like 100 people that actually participated in I mean, at least some portion of the workshop. I know some people had to sort of drop off at the top of the hour, but I mean, that's understandable. And I definitely would have liked to see more like a survey responses, but I mean, but still like a 20 of you who participated in the survey, we definitely appreciate it. And like I noted below, we send a little token of appreciation for people who complete the survey. So those should be going out hopefully soon. Just like everybody else, we're dealing with some logistical issues. So we're hoping to get the merchandise into our warehouse. And I mean, we were told like middle of February. So hopefully we'll get them soon, and we'll get those out to you. And I mean, last time I checked on YouTube, people who either view the live stream recording or the edited recording, I mean, I think we're like actually pretty close to 300 people who view the recordings already. So not just in terms of actual attendees. I mean, hopefully this serves, I mean, our goal is to create you know, helpful tutorial and onboarding material for a lot of different concepts, key concepts in Cube. So hopefully it becomes a good resource. So if you go to the events page, if you scroll to the bottom, there'll be links to both the recording and the presentation deck that people ask for. So if you haven't been able to attend the full, like view the full recording of it, I mean, you click on the link there. So you can review the materials and view the recording. In terms of the survey responses, like I said, I mean, 20 of you were generous with your time, so wanted to be transparent with the scores. I mean, to be honest, I was disappointed with the overall satisfaction score. It's below 4, which obviously, I mean, it's barely, I mean, if you were in school, it'd be barely passing grade, so which obviously we have an area for a lot of areas for improvement. Based on the feedback and other scores of, like, you know, how the slides were, how the demo went, et cetera, I think it's pretty clear that the hands-on exercise portion of it, like, definitely needed some improvement. I think one of the key issues were that we didn't have the sort of we sort of didn't announce sort of what the prep work was needed for the hands-on exercise until shortly before the event. So, I mean, we realized that that was a challenge, and we apologize for that, and definitely something that we'll do better. I think that hands-on exercise experience for a lot of people definitely influenced how they score the overall satisfaction question. And also that was reflected in the comments, open-end the comments that people provided. So we'll definitely improve that and have sort of the setup done for the hands-on exercise for the next workshop. We'll announce it ahead of time. So definitely something we'll do better job of. And the other questions, I mean, it says, like, sorry, yeah, actually, I should have like edited this. It says 22 responses, but it should actually be 20, because for some reason, like a duplicate entries came in, but out of the 20 questions, the popular topics, not surprisingly, I mean, advanced pre-aggregation sort of follow on to our first workshop we did back in August, I believe. Even back then, they wanted sort of a, you know, we did a sort of a pre-aggregations 101 several months ago. They wanted sort of the next version, next iteration of that for people who have basic concept of pre-aggregation sort of mastered. So that's, again, it's a popular topic. And then a couple of, I should have split this question. So that was not well done by me. A couple of new APIs that we announced support for recently for GraphQL and SQL API. So those are the sort of the top 2 or 3 popular suggested topics. And I'm actually getting together with Adnan and the DevRel team in a few days to sort of figure out what our future workshop plans would be and topic would be. And hopefully we'll be able to make an announcement in the next few weeks on the dates. And I'm guessing it'll be like April, like May timeframe, but we'll figure it out, and along with the topic. So we'll make an announcement on that pretty shortly. But if you have any questions, I mean, feel free to ping me on Slack and let me know if you have other ideas about future workshop. So speaking of events, I mean, Adnan, thank you for being here. Well, you've probably seen announcement on Slack and Twitter and other channels as well. We have an event with our friends at AppSmith. So I'll turn things over to you, Adnan, and then I'll let you talk about the event we have coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Just a quick announcement. We already announced this through both Slack and social media in the last few days. But I just want to run you through what we have in store and what's waiting for you tomorrow. So the event itself is going to be tomorrow and same time as this one, so 9 a.m. Pacific time. So hopefully we're going to see a lot of you join as well. The rough idea of what we want to talk about is that we want to literally explain what headless BI means, because it's a new term. We want to explain how to build analytics APIs and how to make queries lightning quick. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the things that the last questionnaire was about, especially about pre-aggregations. We also want to talk about how Cube integrates with AppSmith and why I think they're a really, really good combo. We'll also talk about binding data in AppSmith. We'll talk about generally how to create and design metrics dashboards. And of course, it's a spoiler, but we will have a live demo as well. So it's going to be really hands-on. Of course, you can register for the event here at the link. And also, if you want to do some more exploration yourself, there's always a blog post you can read as well. That's in our blog. And yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a perfect intro for the demo itself we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And thanks for stopping by here, Adnan. And then for people who aren't, really familiar with AppSmith, I mean, they're also an open source community too. They help you build framework to build internal applications. That's sort of how I describe AppSmith. But yeah, it's a good group of people. So definitely looking forward to that. And thanks, Adnan. Cool. Awesome. All right. So moving on to our latest user story from KazanExpress, and like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, the team members, because where they are right now, it's after midnight, so they weren't. I mean, I wasn't going to force them to join. So I'll sort of run through the user story on their behalf, and there's a link to the blog post if you haven't read it already. And for those of you who aren't familiar with KazanExpress, I mean, I certainly weren't aware of them before I started working with the community members, but it's a pretty big marketplace. I mean, you see like over 3 million products. If you go to their website, I mean, if you use Google Translate, even if you don't speak Russian like me, you can sort of get a sense of what they do. I mean, it's a big, it looks a lot like a lot of shopping sites that you see in North America, for example. They sell everything from electronics, beauty supplies, clothing, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we wrote it in the user story itself. I'll just go to the user story there. I mean, they have like over 1 million visitors per day on their sites. And then in terms of like the merchants or sellers they work with, they have over 10,000. And I mean, what was interesting was that it was integrated not just with the sites for the sellers and the consumers, but it's also integrated with their like internal ERP system. So you'll see that in the architecture diagram, they have like a multiple Postgres databases they're accessing for different data sources. So like internal ERP system, so they can provide analytics used from various data sources, and even their warehouse system. Because obviously they need to manage their inventories too, because they're trying to do one-day delivery to all their customers. So it's a pretty like a broad swath of data sources they're working with, and obviously they're doing analysis on like trying to do analysis on the effectiveness of their like promotions if they're doing any, or like trying to predict demand based on the queries that users are doing. And what was also pretty interesting, I think they started implementing Cube back in July of last year. And they're very transparent about what other options were they looked at before they settled on Cube.js. And then one of them was in the middle. It's a sort of an in-house solution with like they use like a ClickHouse as a data warehouse. But also Yandex Data Lens is another solution they looked at. So they listed all the pros and cons of 3 main options, including Cube they looked at. And I mean, obviously, they selected Cube, but the reasons for that was support for a lot of important things. Important features that they looked at, like things like pre-aggregations, like authentication and multi-tenancy, et cetera, et cetera. It was interesting to see the sort of their thought process in terms of how they arrived at using Cube. Here's a sample dashboard they have. We these bubbles here. We added them because these are all in Russian. But I mean, thank you, Anton, from our DevRel team to sort of help us sort of translate the dashboard they have. So obviously things like sales, record reviews, views, et cetera, over a time frame. So this is sort of the internal dashboard or the business dashboard they have. So let me see, go back to the slide if I missed anything here. I think I covered everything here. And I guess the next item is sort of the architecture. And I mentioned that they started implementing Cube in a July timeframe of last year. And it took over about a month with 3 people. I think it was mostly front-end engineer, back-end engineer, plus a designer. And they use a sort of a phased approach, which is pretty typical. They did it in 3 phases. They first got the Cube API working in their Kubernetes environment. That was one. And then they implemented pre-aggregations. And after that, they got Cube Store working. So you'll see let me go back to the blog post here. So I think the architecture diagram is easier to see. So this is I mentioned a 3 Postgres databases they have in addition to ClickHouse they use as a data warehouse. And what they told me was that they try to use some of our sort of recommended deployment approaches. What you see here for all the Cube related stuff, it's pretty standard. They have Redis cache and refresh worker and Cube Store. But these are all tied into not just the data sources, but their applications for doing authorizations and their front end. Trying to see what else I may have missed here. And then as they're sort of expanding their offering, they said they might bring in more data sources, there'll be additional Postgres database here. And I think I mentioned a Kubernetes already. They've been using a Helm chart to simplify deployments. And then they talk a little bit about sort of the staging environments they have from just development to a production. I think that's about the main points of the user story. Let me go up here. Yeah, Oleg it was the main author, but there was Yuri was another community member too. You may have seen them participate in some discussions on Slack, but it was good to see another example from sort of an e-commerce site in a different geography. I had a lot of fun collaborating with them, and this is mostly we had 1 maybe 30-minute Zoom call, but the rest of them was we just started an Ocean page to work on their blog post. So definitely appreciated the collaboration. And then if anyone else that are watching either live or recording are interested in contributing a user story, feel free to let me know. But this was another fun one. And then as we were working on this, somebody from Rwanda had questions about using ClickHouse and Cube Store. So I immediately introduced them to Oleg. So hopefully they got their questions resolved. But another good example. I don't think we've had a user story with ClickHouse and Cube Store. So this came in this was pretty timely. So cool. Let me pause here. Hopefully I did justice for KazanExpress team's blog post. So let me see if I think there's a couple of comments or questions on the live stream. So let me look at that and make sure if I answered everything. Yeah, I think Peter was asking, would it be nice like if there are like a Kubernetes Helm templates, and there's actually one that was provided like a couple of months ago, and I think we talked about this with the last user story from Gasme. I mean, they actually provided their Helm charts in our examples folder. I can definitely check with the KazanExpress team is if that's something they're also comfortable doing that as well. But yeah, so I'll find the link here in a few minutes. But yeah, if people are interested in contributing like the Helm charts, we have a home for that under examples, and I'll find a link. And Adnan, you were like a pretty helpful in reviewing Luke's contribution as well. So the more we can add there, I think it'll definitely help a lot of community members, I think. So. Any other questions or? Yeah, it's unfortunately we don't have the KazanExpress team members here, but other questions on the user story, I mean, feel free to post them on Slack or just ping me, and happy to loop in the folks from the KazanExpress team while they're working away in Thailand.
I don't have a question on this user story, but I do have a question about approaches to doing joins between BigQuery and Postgres. Because there's either the pre-aggregation approach, but I guess the issue I'm having is I have tables in BigQuery and user data in Postgres, and I want to do joins between them. But if I were to use pre-aggregations, I'd basically be completely duplicating the tables in BigQuery because I query all of the data in there. So I'm curious on what the strategies are. I could either replicate the BigQuery data in Postgres or try to leverage Cube Store. I wasn't sure what the right approach was.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to turn to either like Adnan or even Ryan. Like, not sure if you have anything you want to add there, or if we need more info on what Shadi is trying to do. But
yeah, I can speak to this one. Hey, Shadi. I'm the product manager on the Cube team.
Sure.
Yeah, so actually we are, I don't know if this would be the ideal solution to your use case, but we are working on enabling roll-up joins between different database types right now. We're hoping to deliver that feature actually, I think it's next month about. And that would allow you to create two different pre-aggregations, one for your BigQuery data set and one for your Postgres one, and have what we call a roll-up join, which is basically a join data set between those two. So it's not quite ready yet, but it will be soon.
Okay.
I guess if you need something to work sooner than that, though, we could discuss that offline, because I probably would need to know a little bit more in detail.
Sure, let's totally do that, because right now we've been using Cube.js for a while. I'm at Syndex. We do have a user story where we already collaborated with you guys on, and it has been phenomenal. But now we want to kind of introduce some user data into the mix. So this is where it gets a little more complicated on our end.
cool. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for letting us know that you're from Syndex as well. Obviously, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you were at Syndex last year when
I was there. I was there at the start.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean, ping us. I mean, hopefully that was helpful, and thanks, Ryan, for providing or sharing our plans. But I mean, feel free to ping us on Slack, and if we want to have further conversations. But thanks, Shadi. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing your name correctly too. But
it's good. Shadi. I hear it all.
All right, cool. All right, so awesome. Like, any other questions or comments before we move on? I guess not, and I'll turn things. I guess I'll stop sharing, Ryan, because I think next up is your product update. So I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
And let you take control.
Yeah, let me do that. How's everyone doing? Good.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Present mode. Okay, and so yeah, as Ray said, I'll give a quick update on what we're working on and what we've delivered so far since our last call. One thing I'm really excited to preview, and which I'll demo today, is our DBT schema extension feature. So I don't know if does anyone here use DBT, by the way? We really like DBT here at Cube because we find that it's really been a helpful tool for, we have a lot of cloud warehouse users in particular, big data users, and DBT has been a helpful tool for many people we've spoken with in terms of like organizing your data and transforming it to meet some of your end user use cases more, I guess, in consistent ways. So we've gotten a couple of requests over the past year or so from people who would like to see more integration with DBT. So that's something we're really excited to finally be able to show. In terms of and I'll briefly mention before we go into that demo, things that we're working on right now. And this is by no means a list of all the things that we want to work on this quarter. So like the roll-up joins that I mentioned earlier, that's still slated to be done this quarter. But right now we're working on the Metabase SQL connector. So some of you may already be using the Apache Superset SQL connectors. So we're excited to be adding some more data visualization tools that will support for the SQL connector. And so Metabase is what we're working on right now. And then Athena batching and export support. So we have batching and export support for several other warehouses, and Athena was one of the ones that was frequently requested. So this will help with kind of making Athena more performant for pre-aggregating data on Cube Store off of Athena. And then ends with filter options. I know that one was requested a couple times, as well as like general regex filter options, but we're working on these right now. And then there was a couple more issues that were a bit smaller, but were good for some of the new folks on our team to kind of get up to speed on Cube with. And so we're working on those as well. And again, if you want to take a look at our complete Q1 roadmap, I have the link down there at the bottom of this slide. So with that, it's demo time. Let me just exit full screen and we'll go to Cube Cloud. So yeah, with DBT, I want to show a couple things here. One is that we can treat basically a DBT model, a materialized model in your warehouse, just like we would any other table, right? So those of you who've been on these calls before know that we use this ecom data set a lot in our examples. So in this particular example, you'll see that I've replaced the orders table with the equivalent DBT model, I should say. So it's a very simple one that I've set up in DBT Cloud, which has, where is it? Yeah, I'm just selecting the same data set that I normally would if I was connecting to my Postgres data set directly. So instead, now you can see I'm just selecting from that DBT view or that view materialization. I'm also able to treat this kind of cube that's based off DBT as I would any other cube. So I have my measures, I have my dimensions, I have joins with other cubes, which could be coming from, the raw Postgres data set. And I can also have pre-aggregations, and those will be built in Cube Store as well. And if I go to Playground, you can see like I have the option now to query for this data that was transformed by DBT. This would be an example of one that's not coming from the pre-aggregation. You can see it's reading from that DBT table or view. And then I can also use the pre-aggregation that I configured earlier, which I purposely set on a month granularity, so you could see the difference there. But that works as well, and you can see it's a accelerated query. The other concept in DBT that I just wanted to show as well that is kind of the new thing that we added. So DBT has this concept of metrics as well. It's kind of an experimental feature, I guess, for DBT. But I can show how it's defined here. So they have their own concept of a metric where I can do stuff like, create this count of orders, add time grains, add dimensions. So kind of similar OLAP concepts to what we have in Cube. But let's say you want to have this metric kind of calculated by DBT. Well, in Cube, we can also read from that. We can import those metrics as well. So this is the snippet of code, which I can share as well in our examples on GitHub. I haven't done that yet, but I will. So here I'm importing this DBT package and just using this async module, which is useful for generating dynamic schema for those of you who are familiar with how we do data modeling in Cube schema, and basically loading in these metrics from DBT Cloud. And there's a different function here if you're using self-hosted DBT, but it's a very similar function. And I just pass in my job ID and my DBT API key, and then get back these metrics from DBT. And so if I save that and go back to Playground, and let me just do a new query here. I think it has a weird name, So the reason why it's called Ryan DBT orders metric is because I named this orders metric so it'd be easier to identify versus the other kind of orders, things I've named orders. And then also it's inheriting, I guess, the name of my DBT project, which is, I just named it Ryan_DBT. So it's used its heuristics within Cube to kind of figure out what the metric is that I want here from the DBT metric. And I can run a query on that as well. Just do that by month. We can see that's pretty much the same. Yeah, same kind of data because it's also a count as we did in the previous query as well. So yeah, that's the two different ways that we can now work with DBT. Either creating these cubes as we would with any other data set based on the materialized models within that were created by DBT, or by reading in some of the metrics that you've defined within DBT itself, which again, it's an experimental feature, so I'm not sure if many folks are using it yet, but we just thought it'd be cool to kind of show how that might work. Well, yeah, with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments or feedback from you all.
I guess, Ryan, one thing we can add here is that even if you're not using a paid version of Cloud, you can have a free tier to create schema, for example, and copy it into if you're still, self-hosted, like a Cube.js installation, you can just copy what you created here, assume, right? So
yes, I just use Cloud both for Cube and for DBT because I love using cloud services without having to set up these things up. But this works on open source Cube, open source DBT, if that's what you prefer.
All right, cool. Yeah, and Shadi, you added a comment there. Yeah, I do remember when I talked to Sebastian last year, you guys are pretty active in the DBT community as well, right? So
yeah, we actually use DBT Cloud. So this is a pretty interesting feature because currently, we have these DBT models that we generate for finalizing the data that's accessed by analytics. So currently we recreate all of these schemas on our own. So it'd be interesting to use a feature like this. In our schemas, we add a lot of custom metadata because we have built out like the self-serve functionality and like kind of dashboards for our customers. So I'm curious on how that works for, if you scroll down, is there any, are like the measures and dimensions completely generated? Okay, so you still have to recreate, okay. Recreate all of these here.
Well, those, yeah, I guess that's where, yeah, that's where the metrics feature would be useful if you have those defined as metrics within DBT. So you wouldn't have, so then in that case, this would all be optional, right?
Okay.
But again, the metrics feature, I guess, is a little more experimental for DBT. So I show both options here.
Yeah, interesting. Anything less code is always easier to maintain. So we're already doing it once. You don't need to do it twice. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I'm seeing a question on the live stream. Not quite sure what the person's referring to. They would like to see the new JSON output. So I don't know if they're referring to the package.json file or.
Oh, yes, they're probably wanting to see the query.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it looks the same, I believe, from our perspective. Yeah, I mean, I guess the measure is going, instead of, I should post these side by side, but I believe this would show count on this one, and this one does, oh, actually, well, actually, let me just change this. Yeah, so this is a count from DBT orders, whereas this one is, you know, just reading in that metric, whatever it may be from DBT. And the SQL probably looks slightly different as well. Yeah, so that's a count of all from that metric. And without that, oh, well, that's pre-aggregated. So if I don't aggregate it, yeah, it's just counting it. So here it's, you know, it was a count star before, which is how it was defined in that DBT metric. I didn't use ID as the parameter, but with my Cube-based metric, it is using ID for the count basis and reading from that DBT orders materialized, kind of the materialized view, if that makes sense. And show the other one again. Yeah, so there's that star. Yeah, I could have done slightly different metrics other than count, but this is a good comparison, a way to compare the two.
Cool. Thanks. Other questions or comments?
I guess my question would be, when do you guys think you'd have a little documentation about this?
Yes, like I said, this is kind of a preview demo.
Mm-hmm.
We will add some documentation soon. That reminds me, the other thing that isn't working yet with DBT metrics is you'll notice that I originally defined this metric in DBT to be just my shipped orders, and then realized that we don't have yet this is not working yet, where we can apply the same filters that were defined on the DBT metric side to the Cube side. So we disregard these filters for now, but in the future we'll add that functionality for this for the dynamic extension of the schema. But you can still use filters if you use the model-based cubes, right? You would just have those filters defined within your schema, in the Cube schema. I know we're talking about many different schemas now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks, Ryan, for stopping by again. And thanks everyone who joined and with your questions. And we'll do this again in about 4 weeks. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.
But